Sometimes when the lights are too bright, you get the nerves. Funny enough, in the Dome, Syracuse men's lacrosse, they played pretty well. They defeated the #1 team in the nation, they stole the #1 ranking, and then immediately lost 2 straight games when they went on the road. Most recently to Princeton. So just 2 days later, would the Cuse rally to topple a top-ranked Penn team or collapse once again? SU came out on top 9-8 in overtime, saving its season and the fans from some mid-season misery. We're breaking it all down on OPP, which starts right now. Welcome in, Orange Press Pass. Excited to be with you alongside Nick King and Ryan Croke, Avin here. And guys, that was quite an exciting game. Came down to the wire in overtime. The Orange get that 9-8 victory over the Quakers. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. Give me your first thoughts from what was an exciting second half, but definitely had its slow start.
Look, it might not feel like it, Adam, and maybe not to you, Nick, but this is a good win. This is a very good win for Syracuse men's lacrosse. I get it. It feels like the sky's falling a bit. You lost 2 straight. You only beat this Penn team that's towards the bottom of the top 20 in the national rankings by only 1 goal in overtime. Okay, the standard should be higher than that, right? But here's the thing. This is a team that has been terrible on the road in these early season games, and they finally win one today. You stopped that slide, that 2-game slide. They did not look good at all. There were some things that they could have definitely cleaned up today. The face-off dot was a major problem. But the fact of the matter is you won the game, and that is why you play at the end of the day. You're never going to play perfect every time.
Yeah, to me, Ryan, it's pretty simple. This type of lacrosse just simply isn't sustainable for Syracuse. Falling behind 4 against Penn, 6 against Princeton, and then allowing 4 straight goals against Harvard. On the road, those are 3 really good teams. If you want to compete against the nation's best, like we saw this team do against Maryland, it jumped ahead. Syracuse has fallen behind, and it struggles to play from behind. If it wants to contend against these great teams that it's set to face in Johns Hopkins, in Georgetown, in North Carolina, this team needs to quit falling behind and instead jump on their opponents.
And it's not going to be easy when you're constantly on the road. The Orange in the midst of a long road trip right now, but just under a day of rest, essentially. Having to go and face off against the #19 ranked Penn team wasn't going to be easy, especially coming after 2 particularly bad performances from Joey Splina and the rest of the crew. Let's show you how things went down out there in Pennsylvania. Syracuse and Gary Gate, they needed this bounce back win, you guys, and it was Finn Thompson who got things started early on in the first quarter with the goal, puts the Orange up 1-0. It was nice to see them score in the first quarter after going scoreless against Princeton so early on. Penn continued to get things going after tying it up, taking the lead late in the first. Ultimately, the first quarter would end 3-3. But Ryan, you mentioned the face-offs earlier. John Mullen had a poor day at the face-off X, and that was crucial in the first half because it led to what was a Penn run for a bit.
Yeah, and 1 of 7 in that first half for John Mullen, a guy who we really thought was going to be a strength of this SU team, not had the best stretch as of late.
Well, Penn scores right there. That's Griffin Skane off the ejection from Jackson Maher. They go up in the half 5-4. Something new for Syracuse after starting off the year constantly up, going into half, a good first half team, but eventually, Penn just kept putting it on. I thought this was the turning point of the game right here. When Syracuse goes down by a couple of goals, Nick, it's hard for them to come back, but somehow, someway, Finn Thompson in this game goes and scores. He had another hat trick for the 3rd time this season. A great performance from him down the stretch, got the Orange back in the game.
When the Orange get other guys involved, they become so much more dynamic. When they fall behind, they tend to rely on Splina, but getting Thompson involved there with 3 goals, that's what really sparked this SU offense late.
Finn Thompson was doing it all. Then something you don't see every day, the long stick defender. Billy Juwan, number 35, he goes, ties the game up 8-8, and that means we're going to overtime. And if you're a Syracuse fan, you're thinking, okay, you guys got to go out there, you got to score as fast as you can. It even took a little bit, but of course, it ends up in one of the hands of one of the most reliable players on Syracuse. That's Michael Leo, who slings it in from just outside the circle. Joey Splina, a slow day for him, but it was nice to see him get on the stat sheet. Michael Leo, though, helped Syracuse put this one away. That's a 9-8 victory for the Orange. And guys, it has to feel good, despite a tough Penn team who was kind of taking the reins for the majority of that game. Syracuse, they go on these long scoring droughts, but for them to end up with a win here and stay competitive late showed that this team is resilient and they can continue to fight.
Well, you got to overcome adversity if you want to win a championship, and that's what you like to see early in these early season games.
Right.
Be tested. overcome the adversity. You trailed by 4 in the second half, and they rattle off 5 straight, including that overtime winner. It's not pretty, but they got the job done. That's what matters.
There's a part of me that hates not seeing Joey Spallina on this full screen because, again, he did struggle in the first half, pretty much like he struggled for all 60 minutes against Princeton. But having multiple options for this Syracuse team is what's going to help it when it comes to the ACC play.
Well, it's not just us who's talking about this game. We had our boots on the ground. You know, Syracuse is on the road. We got our reporters all over the country now, and we got our guy Cole Purvis, who's out there in Pennsylvania. Cole, thanks so much for joining us. You're looking great out there. Out at Quaker Stadium. So, look, we know Syracuse dropped a couple of games here, and you've been following this team closely, but I have to ask you, these road losses have been bad. So, how important was it for Syracuse to finally win a game on the road?
This was huge mentally, Adam. It was the one monkey that Syracuse really needed to get off their back. They could prove that they could win at home. They did it against #1 Maryland a couple of weeks ago. But the real bugaboo for this team was whether or not they could go outdoors into the cold and win a game, especially against an Ivy League opponent. Struggled against Harvard, dropped a 1-goal game there, and then got dominated by Princeton. And it looked like it was going to be more of the same today, but SU comes out and wins it in not their best game. The Orange were down by 1 at the half, and the face-off for Penn was really dominant in this one. 12 for 18 on the day. Syracuse wins despite all of that. It's a huge monkey lifted off of the back and a big morale boost for the team.
Cole, thanks so much for joining us. Hope you're enjoying Philly, my hometown. Listen, here's the thing. Syracuse was down at the half. Those first 30 minutes were not pretty. You're thinking, oh my God, the tailspin's going to continue. It's not looking great. Then they really start to pick things up towards the end of that third quarter. They rattle off 5 straight goals, and they end up with the win. What'd you see change in that late in that third quarter in the second half to start that comeback?
Ryan, first of all, Philly has been awesome. The cheesesteak yesterday was delicious. But the big thing that I noticed from Syracuse in the second half was wearing down the Princeton defense. Or the Penn defense, rather. In the first half, Penn really dominated time of possession. That kind of flipped on its head in the second. Syracuse allowed the Penn defense to get a little bit tired, started to find openings in the defense. Penn wasn't quite sliding as fast, and it led to a really nice offensive output for the Orange, who scored 4 goals in the first quarter, or only scored 4 goals in the first half, rather. And it could have been a lot worse because 3 of those were on man-up opportunities. So if the Orange weren't getting those chances off of penalties, it would have been a lot worse than that. But they were just finding the openings in the defense. And how about Finn Thompson? 3 goals in this game. He really carried this team offensively. And then Michael Leo gets it done in overtime for the winner.
Yeah, Cole, thanks so much for joining us. Listen, this was a Syracuse team last year that sort of struggled on and off at the beginning, but one guy that was a freaking constant was face-off specialist John Mullen. He's faltered in the last 2 games. What were the reason for his struggles at X again today?
Well, Gary Gates said post-game that the face-off position is all mental, and he thought it was a little bit of a mental block there for most of the game for John Mullen and Drew Angelo. They kind of swapped on the face-offs, although it was mostly Mullen taking those. So it's tough. You don't get possession right away, and that's what led to Princeton building a 4-goal lead in this game. But I'll tell you what, John Mullen won the face-off at the right time. It was a struggle for most of the day, but in overtime when they needed it most, he comes up with the clamp, gets the ball for his team, and SU generates a nice offensive possession to lead to the game-winning goal by Michael Leo. So although it was a struggle throughout the day, the one face-off that you're going to remember is the one in overtime, and Mullen took advantage of that and was a big part of his team winning that game in overtime.
Appreciate your insight as always, Mr. Cole Purvis, who's going to be traveling, covering the Syracuse men's lacrosse team. He's going to Colorado in a couple weeks. I mean, this guy is just all over the country. We thank you for joining us on this episode of Orange Press Pass. We'll be right back as we continue to break down this matchup between Syracuse and Penn. Syracuse getting back on the right track. We're talking about it. Stay with us. been a while since I've been on this show. That's new music. That's a new stinger, too. Orange Press Pass, Citrus TV. We got the upgrades here. Nick King, Ryan Croke, Adam Avin here with you. Syracuse and Penn, an overtime win for the Orange, an exciting one that came down to the wire. But, guys, there were so many other games that were happening around the country this weekend, so let's take a look at what's happening around the NCAA. And, guys, is there any game that sticks out to you? Some maybe future opponents that Syracuse might be playing?
I see a lot of ranked teams on this full screen, but how about that Utah-Iona game? 32-4?
My God.
32 goals?
One player on
What?
One player, the McNamara on Utah, he had 10 goals in that game.
32 goals. I mean, that's more goals than
One
some of
player.
these teams will score in a season.
Seriously.
I want to talk about this Richmond team because the Spiders are absolutely cooking right now. Last time we were on this show, they had a top matchup with Virginia, and they've just kept on rolling. I thought they were a sleeper to make Final Four weekend, but right now they seem like a favorite to reach that Final Four for men's lacrosse.
We're missing a lot of top ACC opponents on this screen, so let's show you some of the matchups that took place. Obviously, Notre Dame and Maryland, two programs that go way, way, way back. The Fighting Irish get that one over the Terrapins, who, Nick, you talked about it earlier. John Tillman just keeps dropping games. This is weird.
This is the first time he's dropped 3 straight games in his career as the head coach of the Terps. Listen, Maryland is a strong team and they'll bounce back, but they might not be the preseason #1 that we thought they were 3 weeks ago.
For sure.
And talk about teams not living up to expectations. Princeton had that early loss to Penn State, but now they just beat the #1 team in the nation, North Carolina. They just beat Syracuse the other day. They beat Maryland as well. This is a Princeton team that's really bolstering its case. It's an unbelievable shuffle of events at these top-ranked teams playing each other. It's going every way you could imagine.
But you know what? This is what top-ranked teams do, right? Princeton gets that win. Notre Dame gets that victory. And then obviously Syracuse today against a good Penn team that kept it close for the majority of the contest. They end up winning the game in overtime. But the reason for that is that the second half comebacks are real, right? The best teams win under pressure, and that's exactly what Syracuse did today. They kept Penn scoreless in the fourth quarter and then get that Michael Leo game-winning goal in overtime. So, Ryan, these second half comebacks could be a thing for Syracuse if these slow starts keep happening. The second half is going to become that much more important.
Yeah, 100%. Look, what the sign of a quality team is winning games, Nick. They did not play their best lacrosse today. Syracuse did not look clean at all. You would have liked to see a much more dominant performance out of the Orange. But at the end of the day, you found a way to win a game where you trailed by 4 goals in the third quarter. I don't see how you can be upset with that result when push comes to shove, especially considering where this team was at coming into the game. Down, pushed against the wall, you had your defense buckle down, didn't allow a goal in the fourth quarter or in overtime. And then your offense really dialed it up when it needed to. The team did not play a complete 60 minutes of clean lacrosse today, but when it was pushed against the wall, it found a way to claw back and end up winning the game. You got to be impressed by that.
Here's my issue, though, Ryan. This team is coming off 2 straight losses. You would think they'd be a little more hungry out the gate, and this is just an 18th ranked Penn squad. This isn't one of the nation's best, but you saw that come out in the second half. Obviously, more aggressive. They played cleaner lacrosse, and one thing that you don't see on that full screen, one of the big reasons was the face-off. A job done by John Mullen. But another one was just penalties. Syracuse had 300 penalty seconds in the first half, led to some great opportunities for the Quakers. In the second half, cleaned that up, 1 face-offs, played make-it-take-it lacrosse, less turnovers. Clean lacrosse is what great teams do.
Well, you know, not to be Debbie Downers or negative Nancy's or whatever term you want to call it, but when Syracuse was down 8-4, especially after what we've seen the past 2 games, we weren't sure if Syracuse was going to be resilient enough to have that second half comeback. So for them to go and get the job done was really important, not only for the Syracuse fans out there, but for the morale of the locker room. Speaking of which, let's talk about one of the main guys, and you mentioned him a little bit ago, John Mullen. The face-offs were a big thing in the first half, just going 1 for 7, but in the second half, he got the ones that were crucial for them to get this victory today. So Nick, because you've been the face-off guy throughout all game today, I got to ask you, were you impressed with the performance, or is it still stuff that John Mullen has to work on?
There's definitely things that John Mullen has to work on, and to me, this is less of an issue as it was against Princeton. Princeton entered that contest against Syracuse as the 12th worst face-off team nationally. Penn entered as the 4th best with their face-off specialist ranking 2nd in the country in win rate. The problem is that John Mullen is supposed to do more. Head coach Gary Gates said it after that Princeton game. Teams are catching on to what Mullen does. He relies on an overclamp that resolves in a shovel flip and catch, and teams are starting to catch on in the beginning to counter that. Last year when he was so effective, teams were going out there doing their own thing, but because he's become a commodity, teams are game planning against it.
You took the words right out of my mouth. He's a known commodity now. It's going to be more difficult for him going forward, and You see the numbers on your screen right here. Solid stuff against Boston University and St. Joseph's.
Wow.
You get even against Maryland. And the big shocker for me was against in that Harvard game. You really thought that was a game that he would dominate given Harvard's struggles. You talked about
he played well against Harvard last year.
And another poor game today against Penn. So it's definitely been harder for him this season. That was to be expected. But I think you have to, going back to what Cole said off the top of the show, he won the one that mattered, the one in overtime.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm trying to point out here. The team did not play its best game, but when they needed the players to make the big-time plays, they did. That's what John Mullen did in that overtime face-off. It was a major part of why they won the game today.
It was super important. You don't love to see the face-off discrepancy in the stats. If you look at it, only 6 for Mullen, 12 for Penn. So it was dominant on one side. Syracuse has some things to work on from the face-off X, and that's okay, but there was the clear difference from those first 3 games, like you mentioned, the dominance against Boston University, the dominance against St. Joe's, to then slacking against Princeton, and then again today against Penn, despite it being a victory. So the comparison from the first 3 games to the last 3 games is quite jarring. Now they sit at 4-2, continue on the road. Ryan, they need to continue to stack up these wins. How can they get back on track like they did in the first 3 games of the season?
Well, I think it starts with the attack. The attack has really run into a bit of a wall as of late. It hasn't been nearly as dominant as it was in those first 3 games. And I was really impressed in that Maryland game, a Maryland team that's really, really strong defensively. Me and Nick, we were both here to break that game down. And we were raving about how great that offensive performance was. They were aggressive. They were taking shots. They were taking high-look opportunities. They were creating these high-look opportunities. And now they've sort of hit a wall. But these last 3 games, these first 3 games, it's hard to kind of find a common denominator, but there is one. They've all been outside.
They have all been outside, rather, Ryan. My issue is similar to yours. This team lacks a coherent offensive identity. It's okay to have some lineup changes in the first few games of the season, but having Finn Thompson move to the midfield and then having Peyton Anderson move to the midfield and Michael Leo move to attack, it's kind of leading to some inconsistencies game by game where this team right now needs consistencies. You saw how effective they were in those first 3 games. 44 goals, and look at that shot percentage, Ryan, nearly 10 ticks higher than it's been in the last 3. I mean, this team just needs to find some sort of cohesion.
If we know anything about Gary Gates' team, the discipline is there, the resiliency is there, but you always want the ball in the hands of your best players, and today, our player of the game is Michael Leo, who had 2 goals, 2 assists, and hit the game winner in overtime for the Orange to get this victory. Look, they got Joey Spallina. They have Finn Thompson, the guys you always want to take those final shots. But Michael Leo is one of the more underrated players on this team because of how he helps control the offense. Not only from X and helping Spallina and draw attention away, but what he can do just from a shot-making perspective. And he showed again why, that even though he might not be in that top tier of Syracuse stars on this team, behind Spallina or Finn Thompson or Luke Roa even, you can put the ball in his stick, and Michael Leo gets Syracuse victory. That is why he really deserves our player of the game for this Orange Press Pass. We'll be right back as we continue to break down this game from a film perspective, running back the film room. Syracuse and Penn. Stay with us.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Avin here with you still on Orange Press Pass as we continue to roll on, talk about number 6 Syracuse's victory over 19 Penn. But because of that, and we've been talking about the comparison between Syracuse's first 3 games and these 3 games, something was different today in the second half, which is exactly why we need to dive into the film and have a little bit of fun in the film room.
And you take a look at this replay angle right here.
Gill's got a wide open lane to the end zone. Thanks, Adam. Welcome into the film room. We've talked about it all show. Not the cleanest game for Syracuse men's lacrosse by any means whatsoever. And I think back to a play early in the third quarter. The offense just really was not going. Let's take a look and let's roll it right here. Joey, ball's at X. They're trying to find an option here. And look at how many Penn defenders are around. It's very difficult for Syracuse to get anything going. And you saw it right there. A pass right up to the top of the right side point is just dropped. It's flat out dropped. And we'll slow it down here one more time. You can see the congestion created by this Penn defense. The only open guy, and he can't even handle the ball. It's not what you want to see out of a Syracuse attack that's really struggled in these last 3 games. But then it really wasn't exclusive to the offense. I look at the defense as well. There was a play also in that third quarter. Let's roll it right here. Late in the shot clock, thank goodness for Syracuse, because look at this ground ball. This thing's going to take a journey all the way across the country. You know, you're in Philadelphia. You're taking from Journey to Broad Street over to the Upper North Side. I mean, unbelievable. This thing's going all the way back out to midfield. You have 4 Syracuse players who can't find a way to scoop it up. We'll roll it one more time again in slower motion here. It's unfathomable that this ball got all the way out to midfield, and they're lucky that it was late in the shot clock and Penn couldn't do anything with it, but it could have been much worse. That's what I've seen here out of this Syracuse team. 2 plays that really stuck out to me. But, Nick, I know you've got some other ones on your mind.
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, there were several plays in the first half where Syracuse really faltered, especially on the defensive side, and we can show you right here. Penn on a man-up opportunity, and just look at the Syracuse defense. We're going to pause it right here. There's a complete miscommunication by this Syracuse side. You have Wyatt Hoddle, you have Billy Dwan, you have Riley Figueres, you have Dylan Segater. I mean, they're all collapsing on the middle, and they don't have any sort of cohesion as to what they're going to do on the man-up or man-down defense, rather, which Syracuse has been good at. We can continue to roll it. Look how they collapse the center. 4 guys leaves a wide-open shooter for Penn, and Griffin Skane absolutely capitalizes. That just can't happen for this Syracuse team that's trying to compete in a very tight ACC. There has to be some sort of clean lacrosse, some sort of discipline. Syracuse didn't have it there, and it certainly didn't have it towards the last play of regulation. Out of a timeout, Syracuse a chance to win the game, and we can roll it right here. Out of a timeout, Joey Spallina handles it for the Orange. He gets a screen and is immediately double-teamed, tries to shovel it away to Wyatt Hoddle. A futile effort. Listen, Syracuse out of a timeout needs to have a better set offense. When you come out and your game plan is to run a pick and likely simply roll across the crease, because you don't see any motion over here from any of these Syracuse guys. They're complete brick walls. So if you're going to be overly dependent on Joey Spallina, teams are going to become overly reliant on stopping Joey Spallina, and that's going to make your offense one-dimensional. Syracuse's offense got 2-dimensional and multi-dimensional as the game continued. And listen, if it weren't for that play, Syracuse might have won it in regulation, but just over a minute later, Adam Avin has our moment of the game.
It is the moment of the game, and it's something that I've already mentioned and you've seen in the highlights. It's Michael Leo, our player of the game, who had the moment of the game, right? Look, it's always important in Syracuse lacrosse, which always happens to have these long droughts, for them to finally get one to get themselves back in the game, which they did with Billy Dwan earlier, but then Michael Leo late in the game runs through the Penn defense, gets the game winner with about 3 minutes left in overtime, and walks off and celebrates. So, lacrosse is a game of runs, where are these long droughts, and for Penn, we're scoring a lot for the second and third period, but the Syracuse defense stepped up, and that's why Michael Leo had that opportunity for our moment of the game. We'll be right back on Orange Press Pass as we wrap up shop here. You'll hear Ryan and Nick sound off on their thoughts for the Syracuse men's lacrosse season. We'll be right back.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
King, Croke, Avin. We're almost done here on Orange Press Pass. Well, we call the lacrosse guys by their last names. I thought I'd give it a try. All right, speaking of Syracuse lacrosse, they got still a wild schedule coming up. Let's take a look at what the Orange got going on. I mentioned Cole Purvis is going to be out there in Colorado for those Air Force and Denver games. Our beat reporters are everywhere, but is there one that you guys have your eye on?
Yeah, I look at that Colorado trip. I mean, we've seen this team struggle in these adverse conditions, and talk about the altitude up in the Mile High City at Denver. That's a great team in Denver. I think that's a game that could really trip up SU.
Listen, I wasn't high on Johns Hopkins coming into this year, but listen, I think this Blue Jays team has a chance to be dynamic and give this SU team some trouble. If Syracuse has struggled against the last three, I don't see it having a lot better luck in Baltimore. I'm a little bit worried about that one.
So Nick and Ryan still worried, even despite Syracuse getting a good overtime win today. I think it's time for them to sound off.
Look, it's easy to feel pessimistic about Syracuse men's lacrosse right now. After becoming the #1 team in the nation, the Orange lost 2 straight, and today barely scraped by the #19 team in the country. It's easy to feel like the sky's falling, but I'm here to tell you it's not. But Syracuse lost to Harvard. Yeah, by 1 goal on the road. But they got crushed by Princeton. Sure, but the preseason #2 team in the country who just took down the #1 team in the nation was never going to be a pushover. But they only beat Penn by 1 goal. Yeah, and winning's hard. You saw that today. There's no clear-cut #1 team in the nation right now. Every team has its flaws. Can Syracuse be better than it played today? Absolutely. We've seen it. Are they going to play their best lacrosse every single game? No way. It's just not reasonable. It might not feel like it, but today's win means something. SU won on the road, outdoors, against a very, very good team. Do not overlook that.
Listen, Ryan, you're going to be glass half full. I'm going to be glass half empty. Just over 2 weeks ago, I sat here next to you, Ryan, praising this lacrosse team after its statement win over then #1 Maryland. But now, after this sloppy performance, it's hard to believe we're watching the same team that we saw against the Terps just 2 weeks ago. Against that UMD squad, Syracuse was energized, disciplined, and damn good. But recently, SU's been sloppy. It falls behind. It's similar to the right fielder on your Little League baseball team. Just uninterested at times. Syracuse is a team with national title aspirations, and rightfully so. This roster has talent. But right now, it's difficult to feel confident about this squad heading into next week's game against Johns Hopkins because of what Syracuse has shown over the past 3 games. Syracuse has shown what it's capable of, but it needs to rediscover that form quickly because the momentum and magic we saw against Maryland is already starting to fade.
All right, Syracuse men's basketball is what this next Orange Press Pass is going to be, while Syracuse men's lacrosse gets ready for its 4-game road stretch they got coming up. Syracuse and Louisville, the #24 Cardinals, which just dropped a game the other day, guys. Syracuse men's basketball trying to get back on the right track.
Yeah, at this point, can we just call it quits on this Syracuse men's basketball season? I know we got 2 games left, but Adrian Autry's clearly fed up.
Hey, Ryan, there's still the ACC tournament. You don't believe in miracles?
No,
this ain't
not
going to be
for this team.
It would have helped if Louisville stayed ranked, but unfortunately for Syracuse, they're going to drop out. It would still be a quad 1 victory if you do care about those sorts of things, and hope for Syracuse to get into the ACC tournament, which I still believe that they are not locked in. Guys, any final parting words for Syracuse men's lacrosse today, their win against Penn?
You got to find a way to win the rest of this road trip. You can't continue to have these issues on the road.
An ugly win is better than a pretty loss, and at least it's not Syracuse men's basketball.
There you go. I think a lot of teams in this campus are happy they're not Syracuse men's basketball right now. We've had a great time today on Orange Press Pass. Syracuse men's lacrosse gets an overtime victory for Nick King, Ryan Croke, I'm Avin saying so long. We'll see you next time.